Growth and Natural. Oh, I'm going to have to officially call to order this meeting of the Growth and Natural Resources Committee meeting. We have just one item on our agenda today, which is the Environmental Advisory Board Annual Report, and a specific focus on the energy use in new and existing buildings. So we're going to jump right into it, Ms. Hayward.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, members of the committee. Megan Anderson is going to be coming to the podium. Megan is our manager of our Office of Sustainability. She will introduce the board chair from the Environmental Advisory Board. Just a reminder, and I think this will also be in the presentation a little bit, the city is working on its Community Climate Action Plan, and I think the Environmental Advisory Board has been, there's policy direction that the council has given in your strategic plan and the comp plan and in the adoption of that. And I believe that the Environmental Advisory Board has been working to learn more about the operational plans of city staff to act on some of those policy frameworks. So with that, I'll turn the floor to Megan Anderson.
Thank you, Tansy. So good to see everybody today, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So we're here to talk about the Environmental Advisory Board's work plan. I'm just going to give you a couple introductory slides first here. So just as a reminder, Council heard the Environmental Advisory Board's full presentation for their work plan in July, and they referred that here today to talk about the buildings and energy piece of their work plan. And the work plan item, you can see here, as Tansy mentioned, the board's been really good to work with us to embed their work and the work plan around our Community Climate Action Plan. And this topic talked anything from new buildings, existing buildings, and projects like the Dix campus and the Civic campus as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Colleen. And just wanted to give her a big thank you for all her work. She's been the board chair all through COVID. Her and Ben Bobet, the vice chair, led us through a lot of different changes. So wanted to thank her for her leadership with that.
Thank you, Megan. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and present today. I do have a lot of information, so I apologize. It might be a little overwhelming, and I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible so we have time for whatever discussion you would like to do. But this is just a quick, brief rundown of the Environmental Advisory Board's annual report. We do the environmental celebrations, environmental award celebrations. We also had introduced an energy use and transportation report. We'll be talking to the Transportation and Transit Committee this week about that one. We're here today to talk about the energy use and new and existing buildings report. We also submitted comments on the tree conservation and planning text change and had some other actions. And I just wanted to do a quick reminder of that. But anyway, thank you for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. I am here as a follow-up, as Megan said, to our presentation to the full council in July, where we briefly covered these items and were given council approval for our work plan for this current fiscal year. I am going to focus on the energy use in buildings. So let me, whoops, I moved way too fast. So as part of our development of our reports, we typically hear from a number of the staff members and departments on issues related to the specific items in our work plan. For the buildings report, we heard from the engineering services and the housing and neighborhood departments, and they provided us information on their program areas and the opportunities and challenges that they have in addressing greenhouse gas reductions for their sectors of responsibility. And as you can see from this slide, we covered a lot of different functionalities of things that they wanted to talk to us about and we were interested in that related specifically to these issues. So on the existing buildings, let's get started with those first. So there are a lot of opportunities, but there are also a lot of challenges with the existing buildings. As you know, the city has responsibility for a large amount of space in existing buildings. The average age of the buildings is greater than 38 years, and 41% of them are 31 years old or older. So this translates into maintenance issues and energy opportunities. Energy efficiency standards can be considered prior to final budgets for upgrades on these facilities. There's also opportunity for establishing set point temperature ranges, modifying policies and standards, and guidelines that are outdated. Gathering baseline data is needed to validate consumption and efficiency of existing systems. The North Carolina Building Code constrains the city from requiring higher standards for private structures. However, the city can be a leader in adopting higher ANSRI and ASHRAE standards and building net zero energy ready facilities. The city can also evaluate incentives for private entities through permit streamlining for solar and renewable installations. Exploring opportunities for alternative options for generators at non-critical facilities was discussed, as well as using microgrids and expanding the use of solar and geothermal sources at more city facilities could be undertaken. Asset management is a critical issue in addressing many of these things. Some of the asset management issues include benchmarking of existing facilities, tracking energy consumption, and communicating the energy consumption and performance data to building managers across 2.5 million square feet of heated space, aligning sustainability projects with capital projects, and refining replacement cycles to optimize building performance to reduce energy consumption. The Environmental Advisory Board understands that the current asset management system is insufficient to meet the city's needs in these arenas. So I'm going to jump off of that last item and talk about the asset data management aspect. We believe that it is critical for the city to establish an asset data management role, a data manager role to track and report on energy consumption in buildings and provide statistics regarding greenhouse gases, the dollar savings, the upgrade opportunities, et cetera, establishing a comprehensive portfolio of the city's buildings. Temperature controls can also result in energy savings. We recommend something that may not be very popular, establishing temperature range set points from 69 to 74 degrees in buildings. We do recognize that there will have to be consideration of building design in this recommendation. For example, warehouses, there are certain facilities that's a little more difficult to manage, but renovations should consider designs allowing airflow controls by individual occupants and also provide staff education on the purpose of these set point temperatures and the greenhouse gas reduction results of temperature controls that can be pursued. We are recommending energy audits be performed on buildings that are greater than 30 years old to establish baseline and assist in retrofit plan development to address energy. In addition, conducting energy benchmarking on buildings greater than 10,000 square feet to compare performance and prioritize investments is recommended. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Along with the asset manager, the city needs a tracking and monitoring system that will enable the setting of goals and milestones and identifying where corrective actions can be implemented and are needed. So we're developing guidelines to assure energy efficiency and solar renewable costs are considered for all upgrades. We believe that that's important. Considering implementation of guidelines for all renovations greater than 10,000 square feet. Also, we recommend creating guidelines for special use buildings. As I talked about a minute ago, warehouses, laboratories are another special use type of building, to include things like daylight harvesting, LED lighting, occupancy sensors, thermal insulation, increased efficiency for heating the HVAC system. We recommend that the city identify and prioritize funding to expand the installation at the Solid Waste Center, the solar installation at the Solid Waste Center, and also recommend funding for that type of installation to be done on all buildings during major renovations of those facilities. The North Carolina building codes are behind current standards, and while the city cannot require private buildings to meet higher standards, we recommend that the city adopt the most recent standards. It's the American National Standards Institute and American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, ANSRI and ASHRAE that I referred to before. They have much more up-to-date standards, and we recommend that the city adopt those standards for their buildings for renovations of city facilities. The city can also then use promotional campaigns to highlight the city's actions and encourage the private sector to follow suit. As I noted earlier, we also received information on building Upfit and the Façade grant programs. One potential option to consider in grant issuance process is whether reimbursement is appropriate or if upfront funding would be more equitable for the applicants. There is also a need to create more criteria to prioritize the funding by need, in addition to by the economic priority area criteria that currently exist. Issuance of the grants also provides an opportunity to develop and transmit educational materials identifying energy efficiency metrics, data feasible to track, and how to make buildings more efficient. Consideration in the granting process could include bonus points for those that include energy conservation in the design. Information could also be provided on their other programs and grants that are specifically for energy improvements for homes of lower income residents and commercial buildings for minority and women-owned business enterprises that do not require applicant upfront funding. Evaluation of the existing criteria to allow uses of the grant is also recommended, uses of the grant to include energy efficiency. Just as an information, the Façade grant funding has not been expanded since 2009. It's at $50,000. We recommend that the city consider expanding that funding. That's not a significant amount of funds in today's financial climate. So I'm going to move from the existing buildings into the new buildings. We recommend that the city build all new buildings and major renovations to higher standard than the North Carolina Code, and build to net zero energy ready and electric vehicle ready. The city also should consider putting into place a process to update the energy code standards to align with the most recent ASHRAE standards as they change over time. Like anything, those standards get updated with some regularity, and we believe it would be in the city's interest to go ahead and adopt that along with a process to for them to be implemented as the changes occur over time, rather than having to come back every time a change happens. In addition, we believe that the city should consider defining major renovations as per the North Carolina State Construction Office standards. When designing new buildings and major renovations, the city should assess implementation of renewable energy inclusion up front, and if not feasible, offset the demand with other renewable projects, and that could include off-site as well as on-site projects. The Environmental Advisory Board recommends that at the time of construction, at least 20% of parking spaces that serve new facilities include the electrical infrastructure for electric vehicles, using the EV-ready LEED standard. In a similar approach to Wake County's energy design guidelines, we recommend that the city adopt an energy efficiency and renewable design guideline for city facilities. This would include such things as solar evaluation before the project is budgeted, that type of thing. The guideline would be similar to guideline tools that the city already has for solid waste, streets, water, and sewer designs. We recommend that the city create a feasibility plan for solar and other renewables at new facilities, requiring evaluation for all projects in the CIP before the budgets are set, to include energy efficiency and project decision-making, as opposed to trying to fit it in after the fact when the cost becomes a problem. As you know, the city received the SolSmart Silver designation this year, and staff are working on gold status. So we are recommending that the council approve the UDO changes coming forward in 2023 to achieve the gold standard. We also recommend that the city continue to look for opportunities to incentivize the adoption of solar and renewables. Permit streamlining is just one such example of a tool that could be used to promote others, encourage others to implement those things. So we encourage the tools to encourage basically the private sector to undertake similar energy efficiencies by highlighting the city's actions. The city's got a lot of really good things going on, and including publication of the energy efficiency and renewable design guidelines would be something we would recommend. those that are being implemented for city facilities. The Environmental Advisory Board also feels that it is important to continue the Systems Vision program for affordable housing on all new residential projects that occur on land the city owns. System Vision provides the highest energy efficiency standards, a guarantee of energy bills for 2 years, and training for homeowners on how to keep their homes comfortable and energy efficient. Implementation of the energy conservation codes needs to include sufficient resources to assure oversight and compliance with the code as well, and that is our recommendation. The board felt like they needed to also say, just as a general, with new buildings, to support the existing buildings report, because there's definitely some overlap between the two. So affordable housing and energy efficiency recommendations. We believe that the city should consider increasing funding to allow more affordable homes to be upgraded, improving their energy efficiency, and allowing residents to be more comfortable and provide savings for the lower income residents. The number of applicants and costs outnumber the funding for this program. The city can lead by example and affect greenhouse gas reduction outside of city-owned facilities by encouraging these things in affordable housing. Additional items should be considered for inclusion in the program beyond the classic HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roof, and structural. Other things that can be added would include energy efficiency like lighting and insulation. Tracking the program's success should also be addressed. We want to know that the program is resulting in reduced costs and reduced greenhouse gases, so we believe that implementing a survey of the homeowners after repairs are made on the cost savings achieved would be good information for the city to collect. We also recommend expanding the System Vision program to all projects on city-owned land for affordable housing, single and multi-family affordable housing projects. We believe that the city should evaluate ways to encourage developers to adopt the System Vision as a standard in new affordable housing that they are building. That, in a nutshell, is a quick overview of the report, and I'm going to turn it back over to Megan so that she can bring you up to date. There's been a lot of activity that's going on to implement some of these recommendations, as well as some needs for additional action on the part of the council.
Thank you, Colleen. And I did mean to mention that there has been quite a bit of work happening, and so we wanted to share a little bit more with council just for context before you asked any questions. And we have quite a few staff here and want to thank them for their time working with the Environmental Advisory Board and us on several projects. So with that, we've been gathering some information for our first annual CCAP implementation report. Wanted to share a little bit of that with you as information. So this is a list of all of our LEED certified buildings in the city. It's pretty exciting. We have, as council knows, a LEED silver standard for buildings over 10,000 square feet. And when possible, we do exceed that. You see some platinum and gold on that list as well. Two quick reference points. Want to give a shout out to Priscilla Williams and her team. We just won a Union Station for Union Station 1, the USGBC Adaptive Reuse Reward this past week for several things. We partnered pretty closely with her team a few years ago and used some of our sustainability funds to add more to that project, but great features on there, anything from brownfield development to mitigating stormwater to energy efficiency as well. So really good use of that beautiful space. And more recently, we also have the Law Enforcement Training Center that was able to get LEED Gold as well. They have over 80 geothermal wells, a solar-ready roof design, reclaimed water, low-flow plumbing, daylight harvesting, EV charging, green infrastructure to mitigate heat and flooding as well. So it's another exciting project. This is a list of our existing renewable energy installations. So as you heard a little bit about, it's anything from rooftop solar to land solar installations, battery storage, solar thermal, and geothermal as well. And we'll talk a little bit more. Council has also allotted us funding with ARPA to be looking a little bit more at renewable energy too. So when we look at our new city buildings and major renovations, when it comes to those standards, for all new buildings, we comply with the current 2018 North Carolina codes and the electrical code, which is currently at the 2020 standard. We also meet or exceed, as mentioned, the LEED Silver standard. We also follow LEED certification requirements for new construction and additions that are less than that 10,000 square feet. And engineering services team also does a sustainability report for projects, which requires energy modeling and life cycle cost analysis. And that includes additional energy efficiency, cost estimating, and cost modeling in that process. And they look to do early engagement on cost modeling and cost estimating so that the budget development process is more fully informed for CIP requests for project planning. So when it comes to energy efficiency and renewables for existing city buildings, the engineering services team is also working on and has energy efficiency measures and considerations in place. So they follow permitting and energy code guidelines for life cycle replacements and to utilize efficient design and technology practices. And when possible, they look to exceed those code requirements, minimums. And they're also using ARPA funds, as mentioned, that are approved by City Council to conduct some solar energy feasibility analysis on a few of the existing city facilities that we have that are eligible. And for renovation projects, staff also review existing energy use standards to look for opportunities to promote more energy efficiency when possible. And Wake County is also updating their energy and renewable energy design guidelines, as mentioned, and staff are looking at those to evaluate opportunities to learn and potentially adopt some of those practices as well. For data and energy management, staff are looking to establish a more comprehensive portfolio of maintained facilities. This includes evaluating anything from asset management to performance indicators and benchmarking. Sustainability, IT, and engineering services are also partnering closely to implement our new utility data software, which we're really excited about. That's called Energy Cap, and that'll help us look at our utility energy cost and usage data more readily and in a quicker time period to kind of make decisions. We're currently working through the billing systems with Duke Energy, which has been quite the task, and we're excited to have that good benchmark of past information to start with to look at there. Staff are also looking at asset inventories and condition assessments and other processes to continue to improve energy efficiency of the equipment in buildings, and this includes evaluating other opportunities for energy efficiency programs. So when we look at Dix Park and the site analysis, there's some exciting things happening. As council is likely already aware, staff are conducting a current assessment of the existing conditions of the buildings and infrastructure to inform the potential reuse and rehabilitation of those. Staff are currently in the phase of data gathering, doing site assessments to determine the conditions of the existing buildings and that infrastructure. And the Dix Park team is working closely with several of the city departments, namely, definitely engineering services, facility, and operations is doing a lot of work with them on that right now. For the Building Upfit grant and the Façade grant programs, they're doing quite a bit of work to look at opportunities to promote energy efficiency, including metrics to show impact related to sustainable features. So we're on their team when we look at evaluations, and we're continually looking for opportunities to build more sustainability directly into that program and have done quite a bit so far. Staff are also looking to provide further resources to the business community related to energy efficiency resources and to continue to update the resources to align with energy efficiency and cost savings for those businesses. And as mentioned, we are excited about the SolSmart. We were able to be a SolSmart Silver community, say that 3 times fast, in 2022. And we are working on the gold, so we're excited to bring that back to council here soon. And planning and development's also looking at opportunities to do further outreach with the development community that will help provide information related to the buildings and electrical codes. And it's not mentioned here, but I'm sure you're aware of all the updates I've been giving around the work around Solarize the Triangle campaign as well. So there's been a lot of outreach with the development community as we've pushed that program out, and that also contains information around energy efficiency work that we're looking at doing with the ARPA funds that council granted us. When we're looking at solar for low to middle income, there will likely be some weatherization work that happens as well, and we're in development of that for next summer. So with that, if you have any questions, we've got a great group of staff here, and we're here to answer anything that council might want to talk about.
All right. Thank you both. It's a lot of information, and I really appreciate all the time. Questions from council members? Yeah, I don't see the current presentation from Colleen Sullins on the
This one's
backup.
dated, the one in backup is dated July the 5th.
We will make sure that board docs get updated and make sure that the presentation gets added.
Okay. Questions from council members? Councilmember Knight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the liaison, I know the chair has asked me not to speak too much, so I'll keep it short.
You know
But as liaison, I do want to thank the EAB for working this hard and broadly on these issues and working closely with the Sustainability Office, and appreciate all the work y'all have done. Obviously, we have established our CCAP goals and main goal of reductions, and so now it's time to start implementing those programs, and that's what y'all put before us. So I think that's very important that we actually start moving towards these goals through these programs. So looking forward to working with you all on that. One recommendation, the CCAP, the asset data manager was recommended. Is that something, Ms. Anderson, you see in the next budget proposal, or how would that come back before us?
I may take that on. So we have not kicked off formally the budget process for 2024 yet. Departments are in the process of starting to think through some of their needs. And certainly the council generally gives direction in its council retreat in terms of high-level objectives that guide our prioritization of resources for the 2023 budget. So certainly departments in some years, depending on our projections and the guidance that we get from the council, do have the opportunity to submit suggestions for potential additions and new positions in the budget. Some fiscal years we're not able to entertain those kind of proposals. So it's too early to give that kind of guidance to departments yet for the upcoming budget year.
Thank you for that. And so I do think the monitoring and tracking of these programs is going to be very important in terms of the asset data management. And as you all know, I really want us to keep pushing forward with expanding our solar footprint in these different ways that we were talking about. So both on the city and county owned buildings, working with the county and the schools as well as on the private property side of things as well. So look forward to working with you all on that. Thank you.
Councilmember Cox or Councilmember Fort? Ms. Sullins, I have a question for you. This is a lot of information, and then there's a lot of information from staff following up. And I think it's easy to get lost in all of it. And so hearing from staff that there's a lot that we're doing kind of to follow up from this, I'd like to hear from you if there's one or two priorities in your mind, and I understand you can't necessarily speak for the EAB, but in your mind, is there one or two priorities that we as council members should make sure that we're carrying forward from your recommendations? Because I know y'all are going to be continuing to work on this in 2023 based on y'all's continued work plan. But is there one or two things that you want to make sure that you're highlighting that maybe staff isn't already picking up?
I don't know that I would say that that the staff isn't already thinking of them, because most of our recommendations come from what we hear from the staff in terms of what they're working on and what their opportunities and challenges are. I think, as Councilmember Knight said, data management is really critical to understanding where the city currently is, and then being able to use that to forecast where where it's best to put the finances in order to make, to capture energy efficiency in those in existing structures. So I do think that making an effort to be, and staff does have this ongoing currently, and I do think it should be a priority to continue to develop that baseline data information so that next steps moving forward can be made based off of that information. I think that's important. We had a lot of conversations about these particular reports, and there is a lot of information in here. We're trying to figure out how we can less overwhelm the council on future reports, so try and keep it, maybe get it a little more better under control. But I think one of the other things that people felt pretty strongly about was the need to include renewables in the design upfront in new and major buildings. That should be included as part of the process prior to moving it moving forward in the budgeting process, so that it should be an upfront consideration as opposed to a consideration sort of after the fact when the building design is completed. And people were pretty strongly, had some pretty strong opinions about that. I think those are two of the important ones to consider. I mean, some of these issues are things that staff has ongoing and are currently addressing, and I think we're strongly recommending things like EV ready and solar systems and geothermal as really the path to go down, and the best way to do that is to consider those kinds of costs up front in new or major renovations. So
That's great. That's great. And I think that's exactly what we want to hear. So I also want to commend Councilmember Knight then your relationship with EAB as liaison, and making sure that we're hearing from y'all in a kind of more consistent way, and you're bringing their priorities forward. At least that's what I'm hearing, and y'all's relationship with staff. So thank you, and thank you for continuing this work.
And thank you very much to the staff. The staff of the city have been very good to work with in providing us information and being very responsive to the requests that we've made to them.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your work, and thanks for continuing it. Wonderful. All right, any final questions from council members? Okay. We have no further business, and this will be our final EAB meeting. EAB. Growth and Natural Resources Committee meeting.
That's right. So as you send this back to the council table, there was, again, no action required here. I think this was just part of the normal annual report of the Environmental Advisory Board, and you do not have additional items pending. So assuming that there are no additional referrals, this may be the final meeting of the year.
Yeah, I'm assuming so, given holiday schedules and whatnot. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. If y'all are hungry, we'll see. We'll see. All right. With that, meeting's adjourned.
I've had so many times when